From the text line, Justin, who told me to go away earlier from my Raiders take, I think, says, never mind, stay on, Dave. That was one of your best segments ever. Clear, concise, informational, upbeat. You should throw it more often before work. Thanks, Justin. I'll try. Joining us right now, Sacramento Kings insider for Sactown Sports, Frankie Cartoscelli. And
we bring the boom. That's what we do.
One of the things about being an insider is that everyone who's all fired up in the chat and everywhere else listening right now, and there are thousands of you, Frankie's an insider, which means Frankie must have all the answers for us. And if he doesn't, and you're looking for somebody to blame Frankie. Good morning, Frank.
Morning, Dave. It's been quite a morning, just doing my usual work for the site and socials, and pop on the old Carmichael Dave show with Jason Ross, and no Jason Ross, no Carmichael Dave. And I hear you had a yak on the side of the road, and I'm catching strays for some reason.
I know.
What's going on, man? But it's a good morning nonetheless.
I honestly am toying with the idea of posting this publicly. Check your phone real quick. I'll send you. This was my view at Del Paso Boulevard.
Dave, now you're holding on for life, man.
If you'll notice
that sidewalk for life.
If you'll notice how kind I was, that I included the curb, but did not include any of the fun that was happening on the curb, and
left the breakfast out of it.
Breakfast and dinner there as well.
Breakfast on the side.
Well, if Puke Guy helped turn around the fortunes of the Kings once upon a time, the very next game, Luke Walton was gone, and we ushered in the Mike Brown era. Maybe my puking today can turn around their fortunes. And Frank, we were talking about this earlier, and sorry everyone who listened, because I'm going to say it again, but Jason and I always talk about the Marcus Smart Celtics home game. This was in Sacramento about 3 seasons ago when the Kings were up 1. Smart threw up a shot. You may remember it kind of hung out on the front of the rim and dropped out, and the Kings won. And we were saying the next day was such a great show. Everyone was happy. It was a huge win over Boston. But had that ball gone an inch to the left instead of an inch to the right on that rim, we're having today's show. And no one wants to hear moral victories, and nobody wants to hear how close they were, and they almost did it. They lost, but for a DeMar DeRozan fumble, and then really honestly kind of a wide open turnaround bunny for him, we're having a completely different conversation today.
Yeah, and I guess it can go a couple of different ways too, because I was talking to Brendan about the fact that we could be having a different conversation on Monday if CJ McCollum doesn't hit, if he doesn't miss that 3 at the end of that Pelicans game. They were really a collapse or one shot away from us having a completely different series of conversations today. But at the same time, I don't want to look at it, and I think Alan Stiles is being pretty outspoken that, there's no moral victories here. I mean, you win or you lose. And the fact that the Kings showed fight last night is encouraging. The fact that they're continuing to play with a very thin rotation, and one that was without Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and Keegan Murray, who missed his first game of the year last night. You still battle. You make it a game. You come back from 23. The signs are there. There's positive signs there. But there's still that kind of little that track record of hiccups and mistakes, and obviously the first quarter, 12 minutes, just not of bad basketball, and then you kind of revert back to it in the final 4 minutes and let Denver go on a run. That Boston game is a good shout, because I think that was a year where the team was. I believe that was the bubble year, if I'm not mistaken, and that was a game I think that had us kind of believing, okay, maybe this team's going to be competitive. And that was the first of, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row where they missed the play-in by 2 games when the play-in came to be. So as a whole last night, a lot of good, a lot of bad, but that's kind of been the state of the Kings this year. And that's kind of what reflects in their record of 13-14, that they've looked great at times and looked bad at times. And we got to see both last night.
Frankie Cartoscelli joining us. I want to play you a very quick clip I played earlier. This is Mike Brown at the podium. Listen in if you would. And by listen in, I mean clip I played earlier. Okay, hold on. I got it. Here's what I'm going to do, Frank. I'm going to mute YouTube. Then I'm going to pot up this clip, and I'm going to try one more time to play Mike Brown for you.
We can't afford to not pay attention to the details, especially when you play a good team. And I somehow, some way, have to do a better job of getting that across to my group.
Okay. I said this earlier. I say it to you all the time, and I say it to Brendan. This is not one of those shows with a host where if you push back on me and prove me wrong, or at least disagree with me, then I'm going to freak out. Like I want your opinion, and please feel free to say, Dave, you're off here. What that tells me is, at best, the coaching staff is not doing their job correctly. They had 3 days off. They're at home where they're 2 games under 500, which is unheard of for a team with the Kings record. Oh, by the way, with that vaunted Sacramento home court advantage. Either the coaching staff is failing to do their job at preparing this team from the jump after having multiple days off. That's actually to me, that's the better option. That's the option I hope it is, because the other option, Frank, is that they're doing all the right things. They're saying all the right things. They're going over this time and time and time again. And the Kings keep doing the same thing time and time again. The scary thing would be that option, because that means that is the very definition of losing a locker room, of players tuning out the coaching staff. And when that happens, that means the coaching staff has become ineffective and they have overstayed their welcome. Do you believe it's one of those, or do you have a third option for me?
I kind of lean, I get what you're saying and what you're putting out there. And I do think that there have been a lot of repetitive sound bites. I think that you hear, I mean, if you sit in those mic ground pressures like we do, he is saying the same things over and over. So it's not just, you're hearing that your ears aren't broken. They are preaching a lot of the same qualities and a lot of the same tactics. And to me, if I had to look at a finger to point at, it's not really the coaching staff, in my opinion. It's the front office, because the guys that you have on the floor most, those lineups and those 5-man lineups, I think Herter and now with Malik, those lineups, the net rating, they're in the green. Those lineups, those 5-man lineups, when you have your best 5 out there, the Sacramento Kings are a very good team. The only problem is you can't play those players for 48 minutes per game. And last night there was a series of reasons why the Kings lost that game by one single point. But bench scoring continues to be an issue. And that matter is, you score 129 points, 115 come from your starting lineup. The 14 that came from your bench, 12 of those came from Keon Ellis. So it's a similar trend where when one or multiple of those 5 are off the floor, everything that you're preaching, everything that you kind of have instilled in your core guys kind of goes by the wayside. And that's not a knock on the guys that are kind of out there right now, the Colby Jones, the Isaac Jones, the Doug McDermott's, the guys that have been playing some minutes while the Kings are going through these injury issues, but they're not at the forefront of the coaching staff's minds a lot of the time when they're going through these practices. They're focusing on their guys that are going to be out there in crunch time, the guys that are going to be out there when the game's on the line. And right now, I think there was a lineup last night that had De'Aaron Fox with McDermott, Colby Jones, Keon Ellis. I think Isaac Jones out there too. That's just not something that you had, I think, any of us predicted to see at any point this season. And again, not to diminish NBA players, they're NBA players. Like, they should be able to go out there and hold their own. But a lot of the players the Kings are being forced to put out there right now are either fringe rotation players on other teams or players that were widely expected to be in the G League right now. So I kind of look more at it as, people have having a lot of conversations about who is to blame. The Kings they haven't exceeded expectations. They haven't really met expectations either. Does it go to the coaching staff, the players, the front office? I feel, as others that, I talk to, around these games, that the front office is the one that should be feeling the most pressure of those players here. So I get what you mean. And, I think we've all kind of said the similar thing at some point, that, and including Mike at some point, that he can preach things and teach and do what he has to do, but he can't execute. You can execute to your best of your ability as a head coach, but you can't go out there and run the offense yourself or run the defense yourself. It just can't happen.
So the last time we were in, when you cover this team for a long time, you start to smell things. you start to get your instincts start kicking in, like, oh, this feels like that and that feels like this. Last time we were in this situation where you had a team that was imbalanced. You had people screaming up and down for the team to do something. You had Monty McNair being accused left and right of sitting on his hands and being too afraid to make the big move. In fact, you'll remember he came on this very station with us, and that was a very difficult interview at a very tough time. And then he traded Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis. It feels like something is about to crack here, and I don't think it's anything but one of the following. Number one, the Kings go on a run here. They turn it around. The record catches up to their analytics, and the real Kings stand up, who we think they are, and all is well. Number two, you and I both know if they lose one or both of these games to the Lakers at home, where they're already 2 games under 500, there's an ownership group here that has been very, very disciplined over the last few years, but will freak out at some point and demand things. Or you're going to see a coach fired. I don't think so. A number of players traded, or a GM fired. What do you think is going to happen over the next couple weeks?
I'd say if I had to pick out of those, that we're going to see kind of a rip the Band-Aid off move in the form of a roster change. And I do think that even last night, I think our old pal Matt George pulled the clip that he took last night. Vivek Ranadive putting his head into his hands last night. I mean, there's been a lot of that kind of body language you've seen from Vivek this year, more times than not. And again, Vivek has been here for, I think over a decade now, I think 10, 11 years now. And I can't remember seeing him show as much frustration or discomfort. And he's a guy that lives and dies in every play. He loves his team. He loves his city. We know that about him. But we also know that, as far as, the patience aspect of it, he wants this to get turned around now. And I do think that as far as the Mike Brown situation goes, I can't imagine the Kings moving on from him. And it seems like there's been no inclination that's going to be something that happens. But I do think that, and we've talked about it a lot of the time, I think probably with you guys, and Brendan and I went on with Alan last week and talked about it. And when is the right time to make that kind of move, that kind of leveraging the future in the form of draft picks, draft capital, talent? What is the time to make that move? It's probably right now with Monty McNair, in this situation where I think he has one more year on his contract. DeMar DeRozan's 35 years old. Domantas Sabonis will be 29 years old next year. De'Aaron Fox, an expiring contract next year. He hasn't signed his extension yet. We'll see how that plays out in the summer. Keegan Murray, one more year on his rookie scale contract. The time feels like it's now, especially when you look at this window. And everything that I've heard and everything that, the conversations I've been having around the team are they believe in this core. They want to ride it out with this core, which is why I believe that there will be a move made coming up to that February deadline. It's just what players are out there and what teams are selling is the problem, because right now, that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be selling off pieces. So that's one team. The Detroit Pistons, who've been bad for a long time, they aren't as bad as they used to be. They kind of want to hold on to their core and not sell off pieces either. So Kyle Kuzma's a name we've heard for, I feel like, forever around here.
He's already a King, basically.
Pretty much been a King for 4 or 5 years now, if you look at the rumors part of it. But I just wonder more about who is it going to be. And a lot of the time, deals come to fruition that we never hear about on the outside. And I think that's a saying that 10% of the deals that actually are leaked or rumored happen. A lot of the things happen behind the scenes, but it's kind of slim pickings right now because a lot of teams are still in it. It's still relatively early in the season. Trade season technically just started over the weekend now that all players in the NBA became trade eligible that signed in the offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see who falls out of it in the next couple of weeks and where the Kings are. They play 7 of their next 8 at home. They don't go on the road, a real road trip for almost a month. They need to take advantage of this home stretch because, again, Dave, if we're looking at a situation where they lose 4 of their next 8 or go 500 at home or go on that road trip below 500, we could see some real aggression from that front office because they'll be operating like they have to make a move, not need to, they have to.
Frankie Cartoscelli joining us, Sactown Sports Kings insider, joins us each and every Tuesday. Thank you, brother. Hopefully our next convo's after a win. Keep doing what you do, and we'll talk to you soon.
Feel better, Dave, and hopefully that sidewalk on Del Paso's recovering well after this morning's problem, but feel better, man.
Also, thanks to Chris. You normally join us every Monday, but you were ice skating or something yesterday, so we'll forgive you.
Not quite, but next Monday I'll be back with you guys.
You got it, brother. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
We bring the boom.
That's what we do. Frankie Cartoscelli joining us.